The September sun hung low over Paradise Valley, Arizona, its heat lingering as I stood outside a rented mansion, staring at a black Ford Bronco parked in the driveway. A red bow, bright and gaudy, was tied across its hood, catching the light like a signal. I was 62, my hands calloused from years of scanning groceries and counting change, and I had spent 5 years saving for this car. Every holiday bonus, every extra shift at the supermarket, every small luxury I'd skipped, coffee out, new shoes, a weekend trip, had gone into that $62,000 dream for my son, Nathan. He was 30 now, but I could still see the 16-year-old version of him, pointing at a Bronco in a magazine, saying, "Someday, Mom." I'd nod, believing someday could happen if I worked hard enough. I adjusted my dress, a simple navy one I'd worn to church a dozen times, and clutched the casserole dish I'd brought, its foil cover crinkling under my fingers. The party was for Nathan's birthday, and the mansion buzzed with music and voices, caterers weaving through a crowd I barely recognized. I walked up the stone path, the Bronco gleaming behind me, its title already in Nathan's name, a gift I'd handed over with a smile an hour earlier. I'd expected something, maybe not tears, but a flicker of pride, a moment where he'd see what I'd done for him. Instead, he'd given me a quick, one-armed hug, his eyes already on his friends pulling up in sleek Teslas and Range Rovers, their engines humming with money I'd never touched. Carly, Nathan's girlfriend, met me at the door, her heels clicking on the marble floor. She wore a tight dress and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her gaze sliding over me like I was something out of place. "Oh, Evelyn, you made it," she said, taking the casserole with a glance that said it didn't belong. I nodded, stepping into the foyer, the air cool and sharp with the scent of citrus and wine. The house was all glass and sharp angles, an Airbnb showpiece packed with strangers, their laughter loud and unfamiliar. I spotted Nathan across the lawn, laughing with a group of men in tailored shirts, his back to me. I set the casserole on a table, feeling the weight of the crowd's indifference. The party moved fast, a blur of clinking glasses and pulsing music. I tried to blend in, nodding at small talk, but I felt like an outsider in my son's world. Nathan found me near the patio, his smile wide but distracted. "Mom, just chill," he said, waving off my casserole like it was a mistake. "Everything's taken care of." His words were light, but they stung, a dismissal wrapped in kindness. Then he leaned in, his voice carrying a theatrical whisper. "Actually, you can help me out real quick." Before I could respond, he grabbed a silver tray of drinks from a nearby table and pressed it into my hands, spinning me toward the guests. "Everyone, meet our waitress for the night," he announced, his smirk sharp. "Please tip her." She raised me right. Laughter erupted, loud and cruel, some guests clapping like it was a performance. Carly smirked, mouthing something to a friend who giggled. My heart pounded, my face frozen in a smile that felt like it belonged to someone else. The tray wobbled, plastic cups threatening to spill, but I held it steady, my knees trembling beneath my dress. Nathan walked away, already laughing at something else, leaving me in the center of the crowd's amusement. I moved to the edge of the patio, set the tray down on a stone ledge, and kept walking, my steps mechanical, my breath shallow. I didn't cry. I couldn't, not there. Inside the mansion, I found a bathroom, its gold faucet and stacked towels a stark contrast to the chaos outside. I locked the door, sat on the toilet lid, and stared at the tiled floor, willing my heart to slow. The hum of the party faded, replaced by a faint murmur through the vent above. I recognized Carly's voice, clear and sharp. She didn't even ask. "Told you the car would shut her up." Nathan's voice followed, low and irritated. "Still need the other paper signed." "She's dragging it out." Carly again, dismissive. "Just get her to dinner next week. She'll cave." My breath stopped, my body still as stone. The words weren't a joke. They were a plan, calculated and cold, the Bronco a piece in their game. I stood, my reflection in the mirror pale but composed. I splashed water on my face, smoothed my dress, and walked out, my smile a mask. In the kitchen, I saw my casserole in the trash, its foil crumpled, untouched. I didn't touch it, didn't linger. I passed the Bronco on my way to my car, its bow now crooked, its shine mocking me. I drove home, the Arizona night swallowing the road, and poured a glass of wine I didn't drink. My hand shook as I opened my lockbox, the one holding my most precious documents, my birth certificate, Nathan's, my divorce papers, and the deed to my father's house. The deed was gone, its absence a confirmation of what I'd overheard. I sat at my kitchen table, the silence heavy, knowing this wasn't just a humiliation. It was a theft, and I was already behind. The night after Nathan's party, I didn't sleep, my mind trapped in a loop of Carly's words through the bathroom vent. The car will shut her up. They echoed like a taunt, each replay sharpening the betrayal. I sat in my small Phoenix apartment, the clock ticking past 3 a.m., the glass of wine untouched on the table. The missing deed from my lockbox gnawed at me, its absence a wound I couldn't ignore. By 4:30, I gave up on rest, brewed coffee I didn't drink, and paced the kitchen, my slippers scuffing the linoleum. The apartment was modest, its walls lined with thrift store frames and shelves of books I'd collected over decades, a far cry from the mansion where Nathan had mocked me. I opened my notebook, a habit from years of budgeting, and began writing what I'd overheard, every word a piece of the puzzle I was determined to solve. At 9 a.m., I called the Maricopa County Assessor's office, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. The clerk, a bored-sounding man, asked for the parcel number of my father's house, the one I'd called Grandpa's haunted shack as a kid. I didn't have it, just the address in a quiet Phoenix neighborhood, its sagging porch and chipped paint etched in my memory. He typed, paused, and said, "It shows a transfer of ownership 6 weeks ago. To Omnicore Investments and LLC." My mouth went dry. "Who signed the transfer?" I asked. He read my name, Evelyn Monroe, notarized by David Monroe, my brother. I thanked him and hung up, my pulse loud in my ears. David, who I hadn't spoken to in over a decade, who'd borrowed money and never repaid, who'd called me controlling at our mother's funeral, he'd helped Nathan steal from me. I sat at the table, staring at the lockbox, its contents now incomplete without the deed. My mind drifted to April, when I'd had eye surgery for cataracts. Nathan had visited, unusually attentive, bringing a stack of papers. "Just sign these, Mom," he'd said, his tone casual. "It's for insurance stuff." I'd been groggy, the anesthesia clouding my thoughts, and trusted him, scrawling my signature across 5 or 6 pages without reading. The memory hit like a slap. I hadn't signed for insurance. I'd signed away my father's house, the only piece of my family I had left, slipped into a stack of forms by a son who knew I was vulnerable. I called David, my fingers shaking as I dialed. He didn't answer the first 3 times, but on the 4th, his voice came through, falsely cheerful. "Well, look who it is, my favorite big sister," he said, as if we were still kids sharing a backyard. "Save it," I snapped. "You notarized a fraudulent transfer of my house, David. I didn't agree to it. You knew I was recovering from surgery." He went quiet, then mumbled, "It was Nathan's idea. He said you were giving him the house, that you didn't want the legal hassle." I cut him off. "You believed that without calling me? You knew I was weak, and you took a notarizing fee to sell out our family." He sighed, admitting he needed the money for rent, his excuse as flimsy as his loyalty. I hung up, my anger cold and focused. By noon, my best friend Tasha was at my door, her presence a lifeline. She'd known me since we were teens, her sharp wit and fierce loyalty a constant through my divorce and raising Nathan alone. I told her everything. Nathan's stun at the party, the vent conversation, the missing deed, David's betrayal. She flipped through my lockbox papers, her eyes narrowing. "They forged your signature?" she asked. "Or slipped it in when you were doped up?" I nodded, the surgery memory now a clear betrayal. "They got me when I couldn't fight back," I said, my voice low. Tasha was silent for a moment, then said, "We need to get mean." She pulled out her laptop, and we searched public records. Omnicore Investments was registered 2 months earlier, its sole officer listed as Carly Ortega. The brazenness of it stunned me. Carly hadn't even hidden her name. The Bronco wasn't a gift, it was hush money, a distraction to keep me quiet while they stole my father's legacy. Tasha printed the LLC filing, her printer humming as we built a paper trail. I opened my notebook again, documenting every detail: dates, phrases, the assessor's words, David's excuses. Nathan texted me that afternoon. Casual as ever, dinner soon. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering, then replied, "Yes, let's talk." The words were a mask, hiding the war brewing inside me. I spent the evening alone, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I thought of my father, his hands rough from years of mechanic work, signing the deed to that house for me, his only daughter. It wasn't just property, it was his sweat, my childhood, the place where I'd learned to be strong. Nathan and Carly thought they could take it, banking on my trust, my age, my silence. But they didn't know me, not the woman who'd clawed her way through a divorce, raised a son on a cashier's wage, and saved for 5 years to give him his dream. I closed my notebook, my resolve hardening. This wasn't just a theft, it was a declaration of war, and I wouldn't let them erase me. The resolve that had sparked in my apartment hardened over the next 3 days, each hour spent sharpening my plan. I moved through my routine like an actor playing a role, responding to Nathan's text with casual warmth, as if the betrayal hadn't carved a hole in my chest. My small Phoenix apartment, with its mismatched furniture and shelves of worn books, became a war room. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd once helped Nathan with math homework, now covered with notes, printouts, and my old notebook, its pages filled with every detail of his deception. I reread old emails from Carly, searching for any digital trace of the house transfer. The only files she'd sent were labeled medical claims and insurance disclosures, their bland titles hiding the forged deed I was sure she'd slipped in during my surgery. No smoking gun emerged, but the absence of evidence only fueled my determination to build a case they couldn't dodge. I called a friend of Tasha's, a real estate lawyer named Linda, who listened as I recounted the surgery and Nathan's stack of papers. Her voice was calm but firm over the phone. "If you signed under anesthesia without clear consent, that's fraud, Evelyn. Potentially criminal." Her words were a spark, igniting my focus. I spent hours gathering what I could: the Omnicore Investments registration listing Carly as the officer, screenshots of her Instagram posts flaunting a new SUV, captioned "Living Our Best Life," and a timeline of my surgery and the transfer pieced together from hospital bills and county records. Each document was a brick in the wall I was building, solid and unyielding. Tasha came over the second evening, her laptop under one arm and a takeout bag of tacos in the other. She'd found something, a voicemail Nathan had left on her phone by mistake, thinking it was Carly's number. She played it, and his voice filled the room, smug and careless. "Once she signs the rest, it's done. I don't care if she figures it out later." Carlos spin it like a tax move or something. Carly's voice was faint in the background, "Just keep smiling." She's still soft from the car. I froze, my taco untouched as the words sank in. This was proof. Their voices caught like flies in amber, admitting their plan to exploit my trust. Tasha saved the file to a flash drive, her eyes fierce. "This is it, Evelyn. They're done." The voicemail changed everything, turning my anger into a cold, precise weapon. I ordered 3 mini cameras online, small enough to hide, with motion sensors and clear audio. Tasha helped me set them up in my dining room, her hand steady as she tucked one into a potted plant, another inside a hanging light fixture, and the third behind a vent grate. We tested each one, watching the footage on her laptop, the angles capturing every corner of the table. The cameras were invisible, silent witnesses to the trap I was setting. I chose a date for the dinner, Tuesday, 10 days away, and texted Nathan, Carly, and David, family evening like old times. Nathan replied with a quick "can't wait" and a heart emoji, its cheerfulness a mockery. Carly and David agreed. Their responses brief but enough to confirm they'd come. I rearranged the dining room, moving the tables so Nathan, Carly, and David would sit across from me, their backs to the wall. No easy escape. I added 2 extra chairs, one for Tasha as my anchor, and one left empty, a silent pressure point. The folder of evidence, printouts, screenshots, The voicemail transcript went into a hollowed out cookbook on the counter, its cover faded from years of use. I spent evenings practicing my words, standing in front of my bathroom mirror, my reflection steady as I rehearsed. You stole my house. You used my trust. You're done. I imagined their faces, Nathan's fake innocence, Carly's sharp defiance, David's nervous squirm, and felt my resolve tighten. This wasn't about forgiveness, it was about reclaiming what was mine. The night before the invitations went out, I sat on my couch, the apartment dark except for a single lamp. I held a photo of my father, taken the day he'd signed the house over to me, his grease-stained shirt and proud smile a reminder of what I was fighting for. The house wasn't just walls and a roof. It was his legacy, my roots, the place where I'd learned to stand tall. Nathan and Carly thought they could take it, betting on my silence, my age, my love for my son. But love didn't mean surrender. I slipped the photo into my notebook, next to the growing list of their lies, and closed it. The dinner would be my move, my battlefield, and I was ready to fight. The Tuesday of the dinner arrived, and I spent the morning cleaning my Phoenix apartment with a precision that bordered on ritual. Every surface gleamed, every corner was cleared, not for their approval, but to set a stage that felt deliberate, controlled, like the calm before a storm I'd orchestrated. I laid my mother's linen tablecloth over the dining room table, its faded embroidery a relic of holidays past, and set 6 places. One for me at the head, one each for Nathan, Carly, and David across from me, one for Tasha at the far end, and an empty chair to keep them uneasy. The mini cameras, hidden in the plant light fixture and vent, were tested and live, their lenses silent witnesses. A small audio recorder, tucked into the base of a flower vase at the table's center, hummed quietly, capturing every word. I cooked a meal that could have been love: roast chicken, scalloped potatoes, green beans with bacon, plated as if for a family I still believed in, though I knew no one would taste it once the truth hit. Nathan arrived first, just past 6, his button-up shirt crisp, but his smile forced, like a politician working a crowd. He hugged me, a quick pat that felt more like obligation, and said, "Smells good, Mom," his eyes scanning the room as if checking for traps. Carly followed, a bottle of cheap wine in hand, her laughter loud and artificial, her tight dress and heels out of place in my modest home. David slunk in last, reeking faintly of whiskey and stale gum, his gaze fixed on the floor, avoiding mine. I greeted them warmly, took their jackets, poured drinks, and made small talk about the Arizona heat, my voice steady despite the pulse hammering in my throat. Tasha arrived, her presence a quiet anchor, her nod telling me she was ready. We sat, the table a battlefield disguised as hospitality. I raised a glass to family, the word bitter on my tongue, and we clinked glasses, their smiles as thin as the wine. The first 10 minutes were strained, filled with forced compliments about the food and vague chatter about the weather. Carly steered the conversation to investment opportunities, her voice smooth, like she was pitching to a gullible client. Nathan nodded along, glancing at her for cues, while David sipped his wine too quickly, his silence heavy. I ate slowly, letting the wine dull their edges, watching their guard slip with each sip. The empty chair loomed, its presence a pressure they couldn't name. Halfway through the meal, when the plates were still half full, I set down my fork and smiled, my heart steady now. "Before dessert," I said, my voice calm but deliberate, "I have a small activity for us to do together." Nathan laughed, a nervous edge to it, and Carly raised an eyebrow, her lips pursed. David just stared at his plate. I stood, walked to the counter, and pulled the hollowed-out cookbook from the shelf, its weight familiar in my hands. From inside, I retrieved 3 manila envelopes, each labeled with their names in my neat handwriting. I handed one to Nathan, one to Carly, one to David, my movements slow, deliberate. "Go ahead, open them," I said, sitting back down, my hands folded. They hesitated, exchanging glances, then tore into the envelopes. Their faces changed as they pulled out the contents. Printouts of the Omnicore registration, screenshots of Carly's SUV posts, a transcript of Nathan's voicemail, a timeline of my surgery and the fraudulent transfer, notarization logs with David's signature. Nathan blinked rapidly, his fingers tightening on the papers. Carly's mouth twitched, her eyes narrowing. David stared, his face pale like he'd seen a ghost. I looked at Nathan, my voice low but unyielding. You stole my father's house. You used my trust, my surgery, my weakness to forge my signature. You planned it, and it's all on camera, every word, every lie. Carly snapped first, her voice sharp. This doesn't prove anything, Evelyn. It's all circumstantial. I ignored her, my eyes still on Nathan. You used David to make it legal, Carly to hide it, and that Bronco to keep me quiet. You thought I was too old, too soft to notice. But you left a trail, and it's mine now. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a small flash drive in a clear case, and placed it in the center of the table, next to the vase. This has tonight's footage, I said. Everything you've said, everything you've done. Try to stop me, and everyone, your friends, your clients, the world, will see who you are. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Nathan stared at the flash drive, his jaw tight, saying nothing. Carly's hands gripped her envelope, her knuckles white, but she didn't speak again. David's wine glass sat untouched, his eyes glassy. The food grew cold, the air thick with their failure. I stood, my chair scraping softly against the floor. This is the last meal you'll ever have with me as family, I said, my voice steady, final. You're done. I walked out of the dining room, leaving them at the table, their envelopes open, their lies exposed. The silence followed me, a confirmation that they knew I meant every word. The silence that followed my exit from the dining room lingered in my Phoenix apartment, heavy and absolute, as if the air itself held the weight of what I'd done. I didn't return to collect the plates or offer dessert. Instead, I sat in my living room, the lights low, and opened Tasha's laptop, her burner account already logged in. My hands were steady as I uploaded the video, a tightly edited montage I'd prepared with Tasha the day before. It began with Nathan's mocking voice at his party, calling me the waitress, then cut to Carly's voicemail plotting to spin it like a tax move, followed by their silence at the dinner table, their faces frozen as my evidence unfolded. My voice closed it, calm and final. You are not my son anymore. I didn't add music or captions. The truth was raw enough. I clicked publish, the upload bar creeping across the screen, and shut the laptop. The night was still, the hum of my fridge the only sound, but I felt a shift inside me, like a door locking shut. By morning, the video had thousands of views, the number climbing as I brewed coffee and checked Tasha's phone, which we'd linked to the account. Notifications flooded in, shares, comments, likes, a digital wildfire I hadn't anticipated. By noon, it hit tens of thousands, spreading across platforms like a spark in dry grass. Tasha called, her voice a mix of awe and glee. Evelyn, it's on TikTok, Facebook, everywhere. Local news just picked it up. I turned on the TV, and there it was, a headline scrolling across the bottom. Mother disowns son after he steals her house. The anchor's voice was somber, recounting the fraud. The dinner, my words. I muted the TV, my coffee cooling in my hands, and watched the views climb past 50,000. The world was listening, and Nathan's carefully curated life was unraveling. The fallout was swift. Nathan's HVAC company, built on his charm and connections, was buried under one-star reviews, strangers calling him a liar, a thief, an ungrateful son. Carly's real estate license was suspended. A state board investigation triggered after someone emailed the video with screenshots of the Omnicore filings. David vanished, his social media accounts deleted, his phone disconnected, as if he'd never existed. I didn't seek them out, didn't check their profiles or ask mutual friends for gossip. Their collapse was their own, a consequence they'd built with every lie. My focus was elsewhere, on the legal steps to reclaim what was mine. A letter arrived from my attorney, Linda. 2 days later, its pages crisp and official. Nathan's inheritance rights were revoked, a cease and desist notice barred him from using my name or property, and a fraud investigation was underway, supported by my evidence. The forged deed was nullified, the house returned to my name, the county's updated title already in the mail. I sat at my kitchen table, the letter open, and felt no triumph, only a quiet steadiness, like a storm passing to reveal clear sky. The house wasn't just property, it was my father's legacy, my anchor, and I'd fought to keep it. Nathan texted that afternoon, his words brief: "Please call me." I didn't mean for this. I read it once, my thumb hovering over the screen, then deleted it without replying. His regret, if it was real, came too late, a whisper against the roar of his actions. My inbox filled with messages from strangers, their words a mix of support and sorrow. Some thanked me, calling me brave, a hero. Others asked for advice, their stories echoing mine. One woman left a voicemail, her voice breaking as she described her son draining her savings, leaving her with nothing. "How do you keep going?" she asked. I listened, my eyes stinging, and realized I wasn't alone. Betrayal wasn't rare. It was a shadow many carried, and I'd given it a name. Tasha came over that evening, a grin on her face as she taped the best online comments to my fridge like trophies. "Hero Mom," one read. "She needs a Netflix deal," said another. We laughed, the sound easing the tension in my chest, but beneath it, I felt a deeper shift. The victory wasn't in the views or the headlines, it was in the truth, now public, permanent, a record Nathan and Carly couldn't erase. I walked to my bedroom, opened my lockbox, and pulled out the photo of my father, his smile proud the day he'd given me the house. I traced his face, whispering, "It's mine again." The legal fight was over, the house secure, but the calm I felt wasn't joy. It was closure, hard won and mine alone. 3 months after the video's release, I moved back into my father's house in Phoenix, its familiar creak of floorboards welcoming me like an old friend. Tasha came with me, her laughter filling the rented truck as we hauled boxes, and a Bluetooth speaker blasting Dolly Parton's voice through the dusty air. The house smelled of neglect, its walls marked by time, but it was mine again, reclaimed from Nathan's theft. We painted the kitchen a soft yellow, the color of morning light, and replaced the broken blinds in the living room, our hands smudged with paint and sweat. Tasha brought cinnamon rolls, their sweetness cutting through the dust, and we unpacked my books, my mother's chipped teacups, and a quilt I'd made decades ago, each item a stitch in the life I was rebuilding. I turned the second bedroom into a sanctuary for women like me, older, worn, betrayed by those they'd loved most. I called it the Nest, a name that felt small but safe, a place to land when the world turned cold. I didn't advertise or seek grants. I just opened the door quietly, letting words spread through whispers. Within weeks, 2 women moved in, their suitcases light, but their stories heavy. One, Clara, had a son who'd taken her savings. The other, Diane, had been pushed out by a daughter's indifference. They helped with chores, sweeping the porch, watering the sparse yard, and their presence filled the house with a warmth I hadn't expected, a shared strength that didn't need words. One morning, a package arrived, a small envelope with no return address. Inside was the key to the Bronco I'd given Nathan, its metal cold in my palm, and a note in his handwriting. Left it at the curb. Didn't know what else to do. I didn't check the street. Didn't care if the car was there or if the gesture was empty. Instead, I went to the garage, found my father's old soldering tool, and burned words into a wooden plaque. She wasn't just the help. I mounted it in the entryway, the key nailed beside it, a quiet monument to what I'd overcome. Visitors noticed it. Clara asked its story once, her eyes soft, but I didn't explain. It wasn't theirs to carry. Every Sunday, I walked through the house, touching the walls as if to remind it we were safe. The ritual grounded me, a promise that no one would rip this place from us again. Letters kept coming, tucked into my mailbox or sent through Tasha's burner account. Strangers thanked me for the video, for saying what they couldn't. One woman wrote of cutting off her daughter, her words shaky but resolute, asking what came next. I replied, my pen steady, you start over. Build from the silence up. Their stories mirrored mine. A reminder that betrayal wasn't mine alone, but a thread binding too many. I kept the letters in a box beside my father's photo, their weight a strange comfort. Nathan appeared one afternoon, unannounced, his knock soft against the front door. I saw him through the peephole, his face gaunt, his shirt wrinkled, a shadow of the man who'd smirked at his party. I hesitated, my hand on the knob. torn between shutting him out and needing to see if any piece of my son remained. I opened the door, stepping aside, and he walked in, his hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the yellow walls like they were foreign. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice thin, strained. I offered coffee, not out of warmth, but habit, and we sat at the kitchen table, the silence stretching until he spoke. "I don't know who I am anymore," he said, his voice breaking, tears spilling as his shoulders shook. "Carly had plans, and I thought the house would set us up. I was stupid, scared. I listened, my hands folded, as he unraveled excuses, each one a plea for absolution. When he finished, I looked at him, my voice calm but firm. You weren't scared, Nathan. You were selfish. You didn't make a mistake. You made a plan. You thought I was too old, too soft to catch you." He flinched, his eyes searching mine for mercy, but I had none to give. "I don't hate you," I said, "but I don't know you anymore, and you don't know me." He stared, as if waiting for me to soften, but I stood, walked to the door, and opened it. As he passed, I touched his shoulder, not as a mother, but as a marker of finality. He turned, mouth opening, but I closed the door, leaning against it, the silence settling like peace. I returned to the kitchen, the coffee cups untouched, and felt a quiet resolve. The house was mine, its title clean, its walls a testament to my fight. I stepped outside, the Arizona sun warm, and looked at the yard, where Clara had planted marigolds, their gold a small defiance against the desert. My name, Evelyn Monroe, was back on the deed, back on my life, and I was whole, not because the world had seen my story, but because I had chosen to tell it.